Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of the Kevin Blekicki Show in junction with the Ryan Show. I am your host, Kevin Blekicki. We have an amazing show for you guys. Hope you had a good week. We are going to be talking about the ins and outs of the Major League Baseball postseason so far. But before we do that, there are some other topics, more serious topics that I want to get into. And this week we learned the importance of learning all of the facts before reporting, and getting a story right is more important than getting the story first. And that was evident in two situations this past week, one being Kyron Lacey and the other one being Mark Sanchez. We'll get into Mark Sanchez in a bit. We're going to start off talking about Kyron Lacey. This is 100% a tragedy. For those of you who don't know, Kyron Lacey was a former LSU wide receiver who took his own life on April 12th of this year. And his death was because of a self-inflicted gunshot wound during a police pursuit in Houston. And it was following a very long legal battle that followed a fatal car crash back in December of last year. So basically what happened was there was this car crash that happened. It killed a 78-year-old man back in December, and it was assumed and it was reported that Kyron Lacey had something to do with it. And there wasn't much reporting on it after that. Everyone just kind of assumed that Kyron Lacey was guilty and at fault in this accident. And what ended up happening is he was completely innocent. And the reason why we're bringing up a man who had a car crash in December of 24, who ended his life in earlier this year in April of 25. And why we're talking about it in October of this year is because we just found video evidence of the crash. And Kyron Lacey was not involved in it. He was nowhere near the accident. They're saying that he caused this car crash and that he fled the scene. He didn't flee the scene because he wasn't involved in the scene. He just drove off because he wasn't involved in the car crash. And we now have found out that the cop who was at the scene was coercing a witness and trying to pin it on Kyron Lacey. I don't know what's in this man's heart. I'm not going to just call him racist, but it seems like he had a motive against Kyron Lacey, whatever that is. That's between him and, I guess, the Lord or whatever. That is not up for me to debate what was in his heart. But this was a clear and gross situation that could have been completely prevented. Kyron Lacey did not cause that car crash, and he ended up taking his life because of the continuous pressure of these court cases and battles and his draft stock plummeting as a result of it. He couldn't handle all of it, so he ended up taking his own life. And now that police officer has to live with knowing that he ended up essentially taking the life of a young man for no reason. And and Kyron Lacey's death is on the hands of that police officer. And I'm not going to go too much deep into the whole black community versus the police, because no one wants to hear a white man's opinion on that. That's not why I'm here. But time and time again, we are shown that the police officers that are sworn to protect us don't always have our best interest at heart. At worst, this is racially motivated. At best, it's just a gross use of police use. It wasn't any brutality or whatever, but it was just a police officer not doing his job and a young man's life ending because of it. And it was totally preventable. And it breaks my heart. My heart goes out to Kyron Lacey's family. I hope that they get whatever closure or justice that they feel is warranted and justified. And it's just a terrible situation. But you had people before all of this was made public just posting articles and saying that Kyron Lacey was guilty and that he was at fault. And come to find out a few months later that it wasn't his fault at all. And now they all have to apologize and retract what they said because it's wrong. And this is just the world that we live in. People are trying to get clicks. People are trying to be the first to stories, and they don't care about the truth as much. And, to at least be fair, this information just became public. So this wasn't known at the time of these court cases and stuff, but still, it is way more important to be truthful than to be first. And I feel like we have lost that as a society. And another scenario in which this happened was former Jets quarterback and current Fox NFL broadcaster Mark Sanchez getting stabbed. Now, when I first saw this, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people had this reaction as well, you think Mark Sanchez got stabbed? Like, I mean, there's famous people all over the world that people don't like and people hate. And for someone to be, you thought it might be a crazed fan, for someone to be so passionate against Mark Sanchez that they'd want to stab him just didn't make sense. And it was weird. And you thought it was just a crazed fan, and you thought that Mark Sanchez was the victim, only to find out that Mark Sanchez was the aggressor in this situation. He could face felony charges. So, I mean, he was obviously replaced this week on his Fox NFL broadcast that he was the game that he was going to announce. He's never going to see a microphone ever again. And he's lucky if he doesn't face jail time because of this, because these are serious charges. He could see felony battery charge upgraded if the victim's injuries prove to be long term. Right now, the police haven't been able to speak with Mark Sanchez. There's a lot of serious things going on. So apparently, he was getting into it with this truck driver or whoever, and Mark Sanchez was acting drunk and belligerent, and he attacked this truck driver. And in self-defense, the truck driver pepper sprayed Mark Sanchez, and it didn't work. Mark Sanchez was still coming after him. He was still attacking him. And so the driver ended up stabbing Mark Sanchez in defense. And then Mark Sanchez was rushed to a hospital with critical injuries. Like, this is just an insane thing. This is such a crazy story. Mark Sanchez is a millionaire. He made it to the NFL. He was the best Jets quarterback that I've ever seen put on a uniform. And that includes Aaron Rodgers. And this guy had a great broadcasting career. He had a great life. And now, in the blink of an eye, it's all gone. He's never going to be on Fox or any other network talking about football or any type of subject. And he's lucky if he doesn't go to jail because of this. This is just so stupid, so idiotic. They said that there might be drugs in play. We don't know for sure, but this is just another situation of, we thought that Mark Sanchez was the victim in this scenario, and he ended up being the aggressor. This is just wild. And of course, it had to happen to a former Jets quarterback, and of course, it was Mark Sanchez that this had to happen to. As if the butt fumble wasn't embarrassing enough, he has to go and make a fool of himself in front of the whole world like this. This is just sad. Again, heart thoughts and prayers go out to the victim of this situation, which we now know wasn't Mark Sanchez. I first saw this article And I thought that Mark Sanchez might have died because some crazy lunatic decided to just rush him and take his own life, and that's not the case. And it's just a wild story. It's very unfortunate. But we will now move on to lighter subjects, and we will talk about the Major League Baseball playoffs. And it is that time of year again. It is Yankees Elimination Day, and the Yankees lose. Oh, what a great day it is. It is such a great day whenever the Yankees are eliminated from the postseason. But this year makes it a little bit more special because, of course, we had the whole Juan Soto scenario. Juan Soto leaves the Yankees after going to the World Series with them, signs a $765 million deal over 15 years with the Mets, and the Yankees kind of did a Humpty Dumpty kind of, you know, they tried to put together veteran pieces to try and add up to the value of Juan Soto. And you got to give him credit, for the most part, it did end up working pretty well. But in a few years, when Juan Soto is still playing for the Mets and still producing at a high rate, all of these old veteran guys are not even going to be on the team anymore. So it was very much a short-term fix. And you got to give a huge shout out to the Toronto Blue Jays. They end up taking this series in 4 games. They absolutely bludgeoned them, scoring double-digit runs in the first 2 games. They had a 6-1 lead in Game 3 of this series at Yankee Stadium. And I thought that the series was over. I thought the Blue Jays were going to win this series in a sweep, and then they didn't. They didn't end up winning that game. And Aaron Judge, who I have spent years producing propaganda saying that he is not that guy and that he is not capable of stepping up in big moments in the playoffs, hits a 3-run homer to tie the game. He hits it off the left field foul pole. Yankee Stadium's going crazy. He had his signature moment, but in the end, even in a playoff series where Aaron Judge did do very well, it wasn't enough for the Yankees to win, and that's all that matters. And I have to say that Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is becoming one of my favorite players that don't play for the Mets, because he revitalized a part of me that I didn't know needed revitalizing. He brought back true hatred between teams. He has several quotes saying how much he hates the Yankees. He, in his post-game press conference or post-game interview with David Ortiz on Fox Sports, they were both saying, "Duh, Yankees lose," and they were going back and forth. And it was awesome, and it was amazing. And even though that the Yankees beat the Red Sox in the wild card series before playing Toronto, David Ortiz doesn't care about that. He hates the Yankees. The Yankees lose, he's happy. And that's something that I enjoy very much about the sport. Even if you end up even if your rival ends up beating you, when your rival loses, it's almost as good as winning. And I've learned how much I enjoy being a hater, especially when it comes to baseball. Postseason baseball is going to rip your heart out one way or another. Either it's going to be the greatest moments of your life, or you're going to be completely miserable. Um, the Blue Jays were up 2-0 in this series, blowing out the Yankees in the first 2 games in Toronto. And I was through the moon. I was happier. I was on cloud 9. I could not be stopped. And then the Yankees overcome a 7-1 deficit, and I just didn't want to be alive anymore. And that's what playoff baseball will do to you. It's a dumb sport. You hit a round ball with a round piece of wood. It's a complete crapshoot of what's going to happen. And you never know what's going to happen. And that's what's great about it. And As much fun as it is to watch your own team succeed, it is also very enjoyable to watch your haters fall and lose. But that does it for the first part of this episode of the Kevin Blekicki Show. We will be right back after these messages. We are back with more of the Kevin Blekicki Show, episode 32, and we will get back to talking about the MLB postseason. As I mentioned before the break, the Blue Jays are the first team so far to advance the championship series. They knock off the Yankees in 4 games. They win that series 3-1. And then we have in the other ALDS matchup, we have Detroit and Seattle going to a game 5. That will be on Friday. And then we had 2 teams that had the opportunity to sweep the NLDS and advance the NLCS on Wednesday, but they weren't able to do that. The Dodgers winning the first 2 games against the Phillies coming back with an 8-2 win and sending it to a game 4 in LA. Then you had an NL Central matchup between the Brewers and the Cubs. The Brewers won the first 2 games of that matchup. The Cubs winning the first game back at Wrigley Field. So that series is 2-1 in favor of the Brewers, heading to a game 4. Both the Phillies and the Cubs win another game to prolong their season at least one more day. Things are heating up, and it looks like it's really anybody's game. I don't see a single team in this current playoff format that is really going to be running away with it. I think that all of these teams have a legitimate shot at making it far, and I think all of these teams have, issues that they got to get through. The Dodgers are not the same Dodgers that won the World Series last year. Their bullpen is terrible. And the crazy thing about this series in the NLDS between them and the Phillies is that the Phillies should have advanced to the NLCS by now. They were the better team in the first 2 games of this series, and the Dodgers just made enough better plays to get those 2 wins. The Phillies were up 3-0 in game 1 of the series, and they gave it right back to the Dodgers, having the Dodgers score 5 unanswered runs. They win that series. They win that game 5-3. And then game 2, the Dodgers were absolutely handing it to the Phillies. Dave Roberts wanted to lose this game. This was managerial malpractice, I should say. Because in game 1, Roki Sasaki goes out there, gets the job done, gets the save, and he doesn't go to him immediately in game 2. He goes out there and he puts out Blake Trinan to get the save. Of course, that backfires on him. And then he tries to go to Alex Vesia. He can't get the job done. And then Roki Sasaki ends up getting the save, getting the last out. So now the 2 wins that they have in that series, they have 2 saves from Roki Sasaki. This was also a series in which Tyler Glasnow came in relief. Clayton Kershaw came in relief in game 3, and Tyler Glasnow is going to get the mound in game 4. This Dodger team is not the same Dodger team that was in the World Series just a year ago. I mean, Shohei Ohtani, for crying out loud, is hitting under 200. I mean, if you just have the Stars just do their job, they wipe the floor with the Philadelphia Phillies. But the fact that their stars are not playing as well as they're supposed to be playing is allowing hope for this Philadelphia Phillies team. And this is a core with guys like Bryce Harper, Trey Turner, Kyle Schwarber, Nick Castellanos, Alec Boehm. These are guys that have proven in the last couple of years, time and time again, that they are not good enough to win a World Series. They got all the way there in 22. They ended up losing to the Astros. Then in 23, they lose game 6 and 7 at Citizens Bank Park against a wild card winning Arizona Diamondbacks team. And they hadn't lost all postseason in Citizens Bank Park until those last two games that ended up costing them their season. In 2024, we all know what happens. My New York Mets ended up taking them out in 4 games in the NLDS. And now they're on the brink of losing in 4 in the NLDS again. And, you're not going to get rid of, Bryce Harper and Trey Turner because of their contracts, but Kyle Schwarber, who just hit 50 home runs, he might be on the market. I don't think Alec Boehm is coming back. This is a team that might even lose their manager, Rob Thompson. He's made some questionable decisions. One of them really being like they decided to bunt with Bryson Scott with Nick Castellanos on second base. That made no sense because the Dodgers were selling out with a wheel play. So Max Muncy was charging in from third. So was Freddie Freeman. He was coming in from first base. So third base was open. Mookie Betts comes from shortstop. He runs all the way to third base. Nick Castellanos can see this happen in front of him, and he still runs to third base. Max Muncy fields the ball, fires to third. Mookie Betts places the tag on Castellanos, and he's out. And he could have just stayed at second base. I don't even know why you're bunting with Bryson Scott. You're taking the bat out of his hands. And this was a game in which the Dodgers were up 4-0, and they let the Phillies back into this series. I think that the Dodgers, even with their messed up bullpen, are a much better team than the Philadelphia Phillies. But right now, the Phillies have life. And if they're able to win Game 4 in LA, then they go back to Citizens Bank Park. And a series that we all thought was over when it was 2-0 in favor of the Dodgers, you're going to a winner-take-all in Game 5 at Citizens Bank Park. And that's not a situation that you want to be in. I know that the Phillies have struggled at home recently in the postseason, but the bank is not a place that you want to mess around with. You're in front of your home fans. Get the job done. And this is what happened in the ALDS between the Blue Jays and the Yankees. The Blue Jays got embarrassed in Game 3. After embarrassing the Yankees in the first 2 games, they were up 6-1, and the Yankees ended up winning that game 9-6. They completely took their foot off the brake, and it was a situation where I thought the Yankees were going to come back and win that series. I thought that Game 3 was the turning point. And, they were going to have Cam Schlittler pitch in Game 4, and I thought he was going to shove, and he did. He pitched very well in Game 4. Just the wheels kind of fell off a bit at the end, but he still had a great performance. He was great in the wild card series against the Red Sox, and he was great in this game as well. It's not his fault that the team lost, but you have a situation where it could have easily spiraled downhill, and they ended up righting the ship and nipping it in the bud and winning Game 4 and not allowing the Yankees to play a Game 5 in which, things happen. You get a weird bounce, one of these things doesn't go your way, and all of a sudden, instead of being in control of the series, you're now going home because of some weird funky ball bouncing off of a wall or something like that. And that's what the Dodgers need to do. The Dodgers need to lock in and be the Dodgers just for one game. I need Shohei Ohtani to be the player that the MLB social networks just absolutely go crazy and feral for. We need that. We need that from Freddie Freeman. Freddie Freeman was better last year on one leg than he's been this postseason with 2 legs. And of course, having seen the Mets play the Dodgers in the postseason last year and get eliminated by them, and seeing Tommy Edman win NLCS MVP, and Kike Hernandez always coming up clutch in the postseason despite never really being that great of a player in the regular season. These guys aren't showing up, and it is frustrating. And if the Dodgers end up losing this series to the Phillies, I'm going to absolutely crash out, because there's no reason for this to happen. We've seen time and time again that the Philadelphia Phillies are a bunch of chokers when it comes to October baseball. They like to call it Red October. I like to call it Dead October, because that is the way that the team plays every year in the postseason. And for a team that's literally an all-star team, you have Shohei Ohtani, Mookie Betts, Max Muncy, Freddie Freeman. As I mentioned, Kike Hernandez has a flair for the dramatics in the postseason. Tommy Edman's really good. Teoscar Hernandez, he's actually been doing really well in this series. He is great as well. This team should be blowing them away, and they're not doing that. And they're taking bad at bats. And Shohei Ohtani has looked the worst that I've ever seen him in a major league uniform. I have never seen Shohei Ohtani perform this poorly at the plate. The man is hitting under 200 in the postseason. This is insane, and this is the kind of stuff that happens to me as a Mets fan. You get the fun hate watch of the Yankees losing, and then you have Shohei Ohtani, the greatest baseball player to ever lace up cleats, can't even hit against the Phillies. And the Phillies pitching has been really good, and they don't even have Zach Wheeler. He's not even a part of this rotation. He has been out with a season-ending injury for a minute now. But I just need the Dodgers to just win on Thursday. Don't let it go to Citizens Bank Park. Don't let it go back to Philly. Just take care of business. In the other series, I really don't care what happens. The Cubs and the Brewers, I kind of go back and forth with hating them, because last year we had the whole rivalry with Rhys Hoskins and him, just kind of chirping at the Mets and stuff. And I don't want to see the Cubs do well because of Pete Crow Armstrong, and I don't need to hear any more of the discourse of the Mets lost the trade because Pete Crow Armstrong is great, and now Javi Baez isn't even on the team. And then Javi Baez all of a sudden hits a home run in the postseason for the first time since 2017. Him and Gleyber Torres in the big 2025 hitting home runs. It is just an absolutely insane postseason so far. And that's what I'm saying. The Dodgers are not looking like this tough team anymore. It is wide open. I genuinely don't know who's going to win the World Series. I definitely think that the Dodgers are the most talented team, but they've been underperforming the whole year. They were supposed to be the number one seed, and instead it is the Milwaukee Brewers. And, you have the Blue Jays out there who weren't really supposed to be a super hot contending team. They're playing great baseball. They're 4 wins away from the World Series. Of course, you have Cal Raleigh, the big dumper, hit over 60 home runs in the regular season. Never been done by a switch hitter, never been done by a catcher. He's my vote for the AL MVP. For 2 reasons. 1, because he plays a harder position as a catcher. And 2, I hate Aaron Judge and the Yankees. I didn't say they were 2 legitimate reasons. I just said that they were 2 reasons why. But I'm very excited to see how this Major League Baseball postseason turns out. If we don't get the Dodgers or the Phillies in the World Series, that would be great. I mean, I want the Dodgers to win the series against the Phillies, but then I want them to lose. I want to see fresh young blood. I don't think it's going to be great for the ratings, but I would love to see either the Brewers, the Tigers, or the Mariners win the World Series. Of all those teams, I would like to say the Blue Jays would be the team that I want to see the most, because I've been riding high on the Blue Jays for years now. If you've been watching my TikToks, I do 30 teams in 30 days before each season. And the last couple of years, I've been riding high on the Blue Jays, and they disappoint me every year. So maybe this might be the year that they actually do something. But that does it for this edition of the Kevin Blekicki Show. If you want to follow me on social media, you can follow me on Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram at Kevin Blekicki. We will see you again next week, and thank you for tuning in.